I just have a question for you. I know, like, in the past, you've mentioned that it's different if a man has a high body count than it is for a woman. And I was just asking, do you still agree with that? And if that's the case, why do you think so?
So, okay, in the past I've said it's different. Well, it is. For a couple of reasons. One, as already previously stated, it's more difficult for men to get laid than it is for women to get laid. So there's a certain degree of props or respect that comes with, like, it's kind of impressive to some degree if a guy is like, he has game and he can, like, he's a ladies guy, like, he's got game, he knows how to smooth talk, whatever. Like, that's kind of reflective of either his status, his physical attractiveness to a degree, and his charisma. So there's some coinciding traits that would necessitate him being able to sleep with a lot of women, whereas, like, any woman, if she was so inclined, could, like, she need not be charismatic, she need not be funny, she need not be even particularly physically attractive, and she could get in if she wanted to. Okay, here's the way I often like to put it. An average woman has the equivalent sexual pull of basically like a top-tier male athlete, A-list celebrity, musician, actor. Like, if a woman was so inclined, she could sleep with 5 guys a day, 5 new guys a day. Average woman, if she wanted to.
Yeah.
Whereas in order for a guy to be able to do that, he has to be in, like, the top 1% of people. And usually for a guy to be able to do that, he's going to have like some pretty insane status. So either athlete, musician, actor.
Would you say that a woman that has a high body count would you say that she is not a high value woman? And if that's the case, would you say the same thing for a man who has a high body count, as in not a high value man?
Well, I don't like this term. In the same way, I don't like the term high value woman, high value man, because it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like the alpha beta thing. I don't like that sort of terminology. But do I think a woman who has slept with a lot of men, who has a high body count, do I think she would be a suboptimal partner? Yes. Am I less attracted to her because of that? Yes.
Would you say the same thing for a man, though? Would you think it's the
No.
way that a woman sees them?
I don't think so, because, again, this kind of goes back to, like, men and women valuing things differently. Like, a guy who's slept with a lot of women, he's probably had to bring something to the table, either charisma, humor, personality, status, or looks, usually a package. And so he's going to be attractive. That type of guy is probably the type of guy that a lot of women are going to find attractive. So it's not, some women, if it's within your personal value system to not want to date a promiscuous man, you may not particularly want to partner with someone who has that sort of past, but he's going to have the requisite attraction triggers to be deemed attractive by a vast majority of men. Whereas a woman with a high body count, any woman could go get a high body count, and it's never going to positively impact her attractiveness to men in any capacity.
So you would agree that typically women, I know you mentioned this before, but I guess I just want to confirm that women are sort of the reason why hookup culture exists.
So I think, obviously, look, both people play some role to a degree. However, women gatekeep sex. So you could argue that because women control access to sex, because they gatekeep sex, that they're ultimately the ones that control whether there's a hookup culture or not.
I would disagree. I do agree that typically, it takes, for consensual sex, of course, it takes a woman to say yes in order for a man to say yes. So like you said, like, it takes 2 to tango, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, though women permit sex, I would argue ultimately, at the end of the day, it is the men's fault that it even continues, because it's a man's responsibility to say no. It's their decision. They can say, a woman said yes to me, but now it's up to me to decide, will I actually commit to this?
Well, I mean, there's a whole bunch of dynamics at play here, but since men are the pursuers, there's a component there of, as a woman, if you're the one who's being pursued, then you're kind of the one who's gatekeeping. The other thing I would say is that, sorry, it evaded, damn it. I had something good, but it fucking slipped my mind. Could you repeat your last statement one more time? Sorry.
I would agree that women allow that sex take place, but ultimately it is the man that decides if he is going to continue with her agreement, essentially. And so I would argue that ultimately it is the man's fault, because it is his job to say no, even if she says yes.
I completely agree. And so I have this kind of metaphor. So like, if you take it back to the Bible and you think of Adam and Eve, right? So ultimately, like the serpent came to Eve. Why? Because she's more emotional, and she's pretty much more easily manipulated. But then at the so she took the apple.
Okay,
took
but
it
hold
to Adam.
on. Let me just
Wait.
let me cut you off really quick. However, and I don't object to religious arguments. However, not everybody subscribes
No, I
to your
understand, but it's
religion.
just,
Therefore, it's not.
no, but it's just a story, right? So
Okay,
ultimately, all right, she gave the apple to Adam, and Adam could have said no. So ultimately, the fault is on Adam, because why? It is his role, right? If you just think about the story, all right, so men are supposed to be leaders. Men are supposed to be, in charge. They're supposed to be the caretakers, the providers, and he's supposed to say no to her when she's out of line. So therefore, if he says, and he, if he permits it, and she's being promiscuous, and he's going to permit it, ultimately he has a certain amount of accountability that if he is going to lead her, he is leading her in the completely wrong way. So ultimately, yes, inside of like the dating scene, he's not responsible for every single woman, but he is responsible for himself and how he carries himself, and therefore I think that she has a point, and I completely agree. I think women have a lot of responsibility. They are indeed the gatekeepers of sex, but then it comes down to also ultimately the man, because she would have absolutely no power if men just said no.
Okay, but in order for you to be a leader, you need to have people that are prepared to follow. And the fact of the matter is, you can be a fantastic leader, but because you have feminist propaganda, it is impossible for men to lead. Women demanded equality.
I agree.
You got it.
That is very hard.
You can't lead someone who wants to mutiny and who is not prepared to follow. Here's the thing, a lot of women want leadership, and they're honestly biologically and evolutionarily attracted to leadership traits in men.
Yeah.
Decisive, dominant, masculine, leader. However, again, these same women do not want to follow.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I agree with you. I
Now,
think there's a lot of
more
women.
now.
Yeah.
I feel like that's
I'd
just
say.
become a common thing now. That's just now trying to be this trend, in my opinion.
And look, I think both men and women bear responsibility here. I think both men and women have accountability. But to say that men bear full responsibility,
Valdev
there's a lot of
donated
women who don't want to follow.
$99. It's only a small percentage of men who participate in
this was the
hookup
point I was
culture.
gonna
That's
make.
why so many women find themselves in situationships. Ladies, stop gaining bodies and start gaining muscles. Thanks, Brixian, for the new muscles mommy preference.
What? Yo, Valdiv, thank you very much for your TTS, man. Appreciate it. Who are you talking? Who's the muscle mommy at this table? Can we get
I work out.
Can we get some bicep, little
Oh,
double
yeah.
buys? Is this a muscle mommy right here?
Got you.
It might be her. Okay, there you have it. She's got some guns too. There you go.
You work. You be in the gym.
I was actually,
Be out there.
I actually had written down the percentage there because that was one of the points I was going to make, is that when it comes to, well, shouldn't, your point was it's men's fault, kind of. Like when it comes to
it's
hookup
really-
culture, like it's men to blame. But if I were to tell you that more women engage in hookup culture than do men, what would you say to that?
I would say that the women wouldn't be able to if the man didn't, if the man said no in the beginning.
But
She
okay,
can
hold on.
say-
Let me just clarify one thing. Let's say there's 1% of men who are like hyper attractive men who can have their pick of a bunch of women who are never going to commit to them. That so, I mean, you're telling...
Wait, can you repeat that last
okay,
part?
so, well, my position is it's not like an equal distribution of people engaging in hookup culture. There's a higher proportion of women who are engaging in hookup culture than there are men, because women are more capable of engaging in hookup culture. So what's happening is, and this is backed up by what's going on dating apps, you have women who are swiping no on 90% of men. They're matching with a very small percentage of men on dating apps. These same preferences can be preferences can be observed, generally speaking, although most people are meeting online, so dating apps, social media, Instagram. But even before all of these, women are trying to get the best that they can.
Big Teddy donated $99.
Uh-oh.
This question is for
bathroom.
Camilla.
Oh, is she gone?
This is your
Rip.
ex, Cody.
We'll
It's
pull it.
embarrassing
We'll
that
trigger
we
it
had to
again.
break up because you wanted to start an OnlyFans. How do you even live with yourself?
Brother, you should have waited till she came back from the... I'll trigger it when
Yeah.
she's back. I'll trigger it when
Alright,
she's back.
Cody.
Is that actually, do you know Cody?
Yes, she did date a Cody. Yeah.
Awkward.
So
Yeah.
when she gets back, that'll be a good.
We'll
yeah,
we'll pull it back up. So
when she comes.
the data is out. You have a small subset of men. You could argue that small subset of men should, not be doing that. But we got something for you. We'll pull it up here in a sec. But oh shit, can you grab that, man? Or I got it.
I'll wait.
But if like a larger portion of women are participating in an activity, then couldn't you say
Doesn't-
there's a higher burden on women?
I think it's on them, but like I've said, yes, women, that's why, it comes down to leadership. And so obviously, like you said about Eve, we do tend to fall more, and this is why we need a leader. I'm not saying this isn't to say that there's a superior, inferior sort of way to say it, but this is why we need a man who does have self-control, and I would argue that if you have self-control, that makes you a great leader.
Alvin Sam donated $99. Hookup culture is entirely on the woman. Women have a greater urgency than men to attain a relationship. Therefore, she needs to make the right choice. Therefore, it is entirely her fault. It is not men's fault because men are judged whether he succeeds.
I think sometimes it's hard to make the right choice, though, as a female. Like you said earlier, how guys can lie just to get into your pants.
Sure.
So you'll think you're making the right choice, and they end up just doing it to get another body on their roster so that they're looked up to because they, when in reality, what you were hoping for was something different. And I think that happens a lot of the time, too. And also...
Oh. Cole, tell that Asian bee to take her hat off. Okay. Thank you, Cole.
No.
No. No. Hold on. Oh, actually, I'm not going to play that. Thank you, Cole. Appreciate it.
Also, I don't know if you meant it this way, but when you said women gatekeep sex,
Yeah.
because guys, they want it and girls can get it, but they gatekeep it. I don't know if you mean it this way, but it almost sounds like because a woman doesn't want to have sex, they're restricting sex, but guys want it all the time and we'll just give it and want it all the time. But since we don't want to give it, we're gatekeeping it. And gatekeeping is kind of a term that is usually like not the best thing. Like, oh, you have this hair product that is going to make your hair amazing, but you're gatekeeping it because you don't want anyone else's hair to be amazing.
Well, I mean, there's different definitions of what gatekeeping is, but perhaps that's just a semantic difference. But basically, gatekeeping is essentially you're the one who is controlling who gets to go in, who doesn't.
Yeah.
You're at the gate. You keep certain people out. You allow access to certain people.
And I feel like that makes sense for if it is just a bunch of hungry men that want to have a bunch of sex and add to their rosters. If we have to be and choose the right person, then we should be gatekeeping if that is the case.
Sure.
So this ties into what I forgot earlier, is that I think a lot of the issue is that it's this us versus them. It reminds me of that Spider-Man emoji where they're all just pointing at each other. It's just this like divide. And there's an argument for both sides, because I think about the same like analogies of Eve being able to be more manipulated and a man being the leader and all that. But it really, unless you just want to go on and on for entertainment purposes, which is fine as far as education and healing and change and all of that, we have to like come together and less pointing the finger. And that's just what I was thinking. And also earlier you were saying
Me?
You were saying that and I think it's just a matter of semantics, honestly, because a lot of people like misdrew like masculine and feminine energies, but a man like constantly just leaking his sexual energy and like chasing women, and again, no judgment, blame, or shame on either side. Shame and judgment and blame don't help. Again, it just creates a bigger divide, but that's not really integrated masculine energy. That's just like wounded masculine energy. And I think that when we go deeper into these layers, I like the layers because we can actually just go beyond the surface. And that's kind of what I wanted to add on from earlier.
We're